Hello and welcome to Motto Genki, Japanese study with me, Robin Darby. This is the first lesson in my Japanese language tutorial series. And so to begin with, I'm going to briefly talk about who I am and what I'm about. Then I'm going to go over how these lessons are going to be set up and how we will go through them. And then we'll go on to the first lesson itself. So briefly to begin with, I'm currently living in Japan. I've been living here for over 4 years. And when I came to Japan, I had no Japanese language ability at all. I couldn't speak Japanese at all. However, through self-study and day-to-day interaction with Japanese people, I've developed a conversational level of Japanese. And that's what I'm going to be teaching in these video tutorial series, Conversational Everyday Japanese. So this video series is inspired by a book from the Japan Times called Genki. And if you've looked into studying Japanese in the past, perhaps you've come across the book Genki. That's why this video tutorial series is called Motto Genki. Motto meaning more, so more Genki. I'm in no way affiliated with the Japan Times. This is my own somewhat original production. No material from the books is used within this tutorial series. It's all original material that I've developed myself. You don't need the book to follow along. However, I recommend personally using the Genki book, because that is the book that I use, and I can't praise it enough. It's a brilliant book, and it teaches it has a very good way of teaching Japanese. So these lessons, they'll be separated into small parts, and each part will teach one little skill. And one lesson will have maybe 4 or 5 parts, and then at the end of the lesson there's a small test. So let's begin. So this is lesson 1, introductions. So in this lesson we're going to be introduced to the Japanese language, and also it will learn some basic greetings so you can introduce yourself in Japanese. So part 1 is we're going to look a little bit at the Japanese language, where it's from, who speaks it, and all that kind of thing. Then part 2, we'll be looking at the way that Japanese language is written and the way it is spoken generally. Then part 3, we're going to look at some basic greetings, or aisatsu in Japanese. And then we're going to talk about how to progress from there in learning Japanese, and finally in the end there's a small test. So part 1, the Japanese language. So Japanese is the language of Japan. So here there is Japan. Japan is made up of many little islands, and there's quite a few different regional dialects of Japanese. We'll look at that in a little while. Then Japanese and the English language are very, very different. They're probably as different as languages get. The way they're structured is somewhat different, and the way they're spoken and levels of politeness and all this kind of thing, they're all very different from each other. The Japanese language natively has 126 million speakers, and worldwide 1 million second language speakers. So these are people who speak Japanese as a second language. How is a person's Japanese ability assessed? So in Japan, well, worldwide, there is a test called the JLPT, the Japanese Language Proficiency Test. And this we will touch on more in future lessons, but for now you just need to know that's the test, which is generally accepted as judging how someone's Japanese ability is assessed. And finally, is Japanese easy to learn? Well, that question really depends on the person who's learning. If you are committed to learning Japanese and you study a little every day or every few days, you'll quite quickly pick it up. But if you just dip in and out of it, maybe it'll be a little more difficult. But as a language to learn, it's got a lot of structure to it. It's quite easy to follow rules, and you can develop it quite quickly, I think. It all depends on how seriously you want to study Japanese. So, part 2. Written and spoken Japanese. So, to begin with, we're going to look at written Japanese. So, in Japanese, there are 3 main writing systems which are used. There are the kanji, or the Chinese characters, which are originally come from the Chinese language, but have been developed into written Japanese over time. There is the hiragana, which is one of the kana being syllabic characters, which is to do with syllables and sounds. And there is the katakana, which is another one of the kana, which is used mainly for writing down borrowed words from other languages, but we'll look at that more in depth in a little while. So to begin with, here you can see there is the kanji. Kanji are usually very complex looking. They have many parts. Some of them are incredibly complicated. Some of them are somewhat easier. Some of them are very easy. This one is the kanji for sakura, or the cherry blossom, cherry tree. Then here next to it there is hiragana. The same word is sakura, so it's sakura, and these are much more simpler than the kanji. They're very, compared to the katakana, they're much curvier. So here I've written the more curvy, but they're curvier and much more. I don't want to say elegant, but they look more beautiful, I think. And finally, there is the katakana, which again here says sakura. So all 3 of these say the same thing, but they're the different writing systems, which be used for different reasons. So the katakana can be identified because it's, again, much more simpler than kanji, but it's a lot more angular, much more straight-lined and angles than the hiragana, which is much more softer, more flowing. Right, so to start with here, then we'll just quickly look at the kanji. So in these tutorial series, we're going to really just touch on reading kanji, not so much writing. Maybe at some point we'll look at that, but that's a different skill entirely. So kanji are pictographic, which they look like pictures. They're meant to look like the things, in some respect, that they represent, because they originally come from like pictograms, which were like a long time ago, much more pictographic pictures which would represent the things that they are. But here, if we look at the top one here, there is the kanji for tree, which I don't know if you agree, it looks a little bit like a tree. But kanjis themselves can be a word on its own. So like I said, tree. But these 2 here, these are one character, one kanji in their own right, but they have parts of them are made of the other kanji, the tree. So here, wood as in like woodland or coppice, is made of 2 trees, and then this one here, forest, is made of like 3 trees. These little parts are parts of the kanji that make up the kanji are not themselves kanji. These are parts of the kanji. This is one kanji, one kanji, one kanji. However, kanji can also be used together to make different words. So for example, here we have fire, which again, I don't know if you can Imagine it looks a little bit like a fire, I suppose. And then mountain, again, looks a little bit like a mountain, I suppose. But together, fire mountain, volcano. So often when you look at them, you can imagine what they mean from the shapes only sometimes, but sometimes it's a little more difficult to understand the meaning, which is why you have to learn them. So kanji are used to express nouns or name words like cat or fish or tree, volcano, this kind of thing. They can also be used to express verbs, which are doing words like run and eat, talk, do. Well, not do, but and we'll get to that in the future. And adjectives. So this is descriptive words like beautiful, tall, short, old, new, this kind of thing. So they are very versatile and they're used for many things. Right. So next we will look at the hiragana. So as I said before, this is one of the two kana. So the Japanese language has set sounds which every word is made of. Each one of the sounds has its own symbol associated with it in the hiragana. But again, that has its own rules. The usage of the hiragana is mainly used to add extra meaning to words. So, for example, if you have the word for eat, you can use some hiragana at the end and it will change it to ate or eating or something like this. It can also be used to show how a kanji is read. So if a kanji is a little obscure or complicated to read, you can have little tiny characters above it, which are called furigana, and these are the way to read the kanji, and they use hiragana. Also, sometimes instead of writing a kanji, which exists for a word, you will write the hiragana for various different reasons. They can also be used to write people's names, often women's names. Sometimes women's names are written only in hiragana. So here, if I can turn this on. So these ones are the vowels of the language. So there is a, I, U, E, O, a, I, U, E, O. So these are the vowels of the language. From there you have sounds which use those vowels along with a different consonant sound. So for example, sa is this one, sa, ku is this one, and ra, this one, sakura. So that's where the sounds come from for the hiragana. So available in the description of the video somewhere, there'll be a link so you can download this I've made, which is a chart which contains all the hiragana that you will need to learn. So you can download that and at your own leisure go over and learn the hiragana. So next we're going to look at katakana. So katakana, like hiragana, is one of the kana. So again, each symbol will represent one sound. They're mainly used, like I said before, to express foreign words or borrowed words, which the Japanese language will use. So this we'll go over in a little while, but Japanese has many words that it uses from other languages, and they are written in katakana. So also katakana is used similar to the way that we would use italics. It adds extra emphasis to a word. So if you write a word in katakana, it will be more emphasized, like I said, in the way that we use italics in English. So again, there is a, I, U, E, O, and again, sa, sakura, sakura. So we're going to be looking more at borrowed words later in this lesson, but for now, that's all you need to know. And again, there is the katakana chart in the download. Right, so spoken Japanese. There is the main standard Japanese, which is Hyojungo, and Hyojungo is the Japanese that is spoken on the news, and is standard, correct Japanese. That's the Japanese I will be teaching, because that's the Japanese I've learned. There are, however, many dialects, or hogen. The dialects can be sometimes very, very different from standard Japanese, and in some circumstances can be completely different. For example, here this cat is saying haisai, which is the dialect of one of the islands called Okinawa. And haisai means hello. However, if you said that to somebody who doesn't speak that dialect, they probably wouldn't understand what you're on about. So the dog's a little confused and he says, "What?" Because he doesn't understand. So it's important to remember that the Japanese language doesn't have every sound that the English language has. For example, it doesn't have the TH sounds like th or th. It doesn't have those. And Japanese people often, especially if they're learning English or another language, I suppose, they find it difficult to make that sound because they've never learnt it from being a child like an English speaker would have done. It also doesn't contain the V sound. So again, there's many English words which, when they become borrowed Japanese words, are quite different because of that. Also, Japanese has sounds in the language that English doesn't have. For example, the L and R sounds that we have in English, the Japanese R sounds are actually somewhere in between L and R. It's not, for example, rari rurero. It's rari rurero. It's in the middle. Also, there is a sound hu, which is written, when it's written in the English form, is written as fu, but the pronunciation is actually more breathy. It's hu. But again, you don't need to know that at this point. That's just to explain the differences. So it has certain sounds that English doesn't have. Also, this won't really come into play in these lessons, but the Japanese language is a little different between men and women. Women's Japanese is much more polite compared to men's, and there's many more things that they use that the male language or gender neutral language will use. But again, that's not really going to come in these lessons. So the Japanese in these lessons is standard Japanese that everybody will use. Right, part 3, greetings. So in this part, we're going to learn some Japanese now. So we're going to begin that. So here we have aisatsu. Aisatsu. And aisatsu is like greetings. So, first one, good morning. Ohayo. So here we have ohayo. So this U sound actually makes the yo sound a lot longer. So it's ohayo. Ohayo. Good morning. Ohayo. There is also the much more polite Ohayo gozaimasu. Ohayo gozaimasu. So here we have o and ha and yo. This one is u, but here is yo, much longer yo sound. It's go, za, I, ma, This is su. But in this word, for reasons we'll cover later, it's just s. Ohayo gozaimasu. Okay? Hello. Konnichiwa. Konnichiwa. This sound here, the n sound, is one of the only sounds in the Japanese language which doesn't have a vowel sound connected to it or be only a vowel sound. It's the only consonant-only sound in the language. N. Konnichiwa. Konnichiwa. Also here, this one is usually pronounced as ha. But in this context, again, for reasons we'll cover in another lesson, it's pronounced wa. Konnichiwa. Hello. And good evening. Konbanwa. So again, just to emphasize it, I've put in inverted commas. Wa. Konbanwa. Good evening. Right, and finally we've got some goodbyes here. So there is goodbye, which is sayonara. Sayonara. But again, this word has the long u, but making it long o. Yo. Sayonara. This word for goodbye is not often used in Japanese. Most people probably have heard sayonara, but it's not often used because its meaning is more, I don't know when I will see you again. It's for much longer goodbyes. Possibly you will never see this person again. Sayonara. Or maybe you won't see them for many, many months or years. Again, sayonara. This one is a much more common, casual way to say goodbye, which is mata ne, which is see you later. Mata ne. Mata ne. And here we have the thank yous, the seemingly never-ending list of thank yous that exist in the Japanese language. So in the beginning of the video I talked about how Japanese has levels of politeness. This demonstrates it. So there's different ways of saying thank you, and some are polite, some are not polite, some are very polite. When I say not polite, I don't mean it's impolite, it's just casual. The main one, the one that I use maybe 90% of the time, is this one at the top. Arigato. Arigato. Which I imagine most people have probably heard at some point or another. The next one, which is a little more polite, is arigatou gozaimasu. Arigatou gozaimasu. And then there is a little more casual feeling, domo, which itself actually is like an intensifier, which we'll get to in a second. It just makes something stronger. So here and below it, there's a much more polite domo arigato, which is thank you very much. It's much stronger because of the domo, but you can use that on its own. And then finally, there is the extremely super polite domo arigato gozaimasu. Domo arigato gozaimasu, which is something I've never actually used in proper conversation because I think people would think you were insane if you did. Right, we have some apologies here. So there is sumimasen, sumimasen, excuse me, sumimasen, and sorry, gomen nasai, gomen nasai. So often you can use them together. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. But they both more or less mean sorry. So if you was to bang into somebody, you could go, oh, sumimasen, gomen nasai. and it would mean, oh, I'm very sorry, please excuse me. So that brings us to the end of the greetings and apologies and thanks. You can go over these at your leisure, rewinding the video and listening again. You can also use the hiragana chart, which can be downloaded again, like I said, from the description in the bottom. But also there is the English pronunciations here, but I recommend going through them with this video so you get the pronunciation right. Right, near the end of the video now. So this is the beginning. This is your Japanese study. So, congratulations! You've begun to study Japanese. So by now, if you've gone over the video a few times, you might be able to use some basic words like thank you and hello and goodbye and all that kind of thing. So I hope you continue, and these videos will be coming out very often, very frequently, to help you study Japanese. So today what we've learned about the Japanese language. We've looked at how it's structured, we've looked at how it's written, how it's spoken, and we've also learned some useful vocabulary that you can use. So, where next? So attached to this video in the description, you can download some homework. So the homework is going over some of the vocabulary. There's a little writing practice as well, but I won't really be going over writing, just in this beginning homework. You can continue to check back for new videos, and I hope you enjoy the learning of Japanese, because I personally think the Japanese language is very beautiful, and I imagine most people agree with me. And it's a nice thing to learn, and you don't have to learn it quickly. You can take your time and develop a very good understanding of Japanese. Right, the test. So this is just a little test, a little beginning test to test your Japanese that you've learned so far. So, question 1. Get ready. Oh. Right. What is hello in Japanese? Is it A, konnichiwa? Is it B, mata ne? Or is it C, arigato? Right, next question. Here we go. Question 2. How do you say sorry in Japanese? Is it A, arigato? Is it B, konbanwa? Or is it C, gomen nasai? Right, here's the last question. Question 3. Get ready. What is good morning in Japanese? Is it A, sayonara? Is it B, ohayo? Or is it C, konbanwa? Right, pencils down, the test is finished. So we're going to go over the answers quickly, and then that will bring us to the end of this video. So, what is hello in Japanese? It's obviously konnichiwa. Hello is konnichiwa. Mata ne is see you later, and arigato is thank you. So, konnichiwa, hello. How do you say sorry? And the answer is gomen nasai. I mean, you could also say the sumimasen, but gomen nasai is sorry. A, arigato, again, thank you. And B, konbanwa is good evening. Well, not good night is goodbye in English, but good evening. And lastly, what is good morning? And the answer is Ohayo. Good morning. Ohayo. The other two are the goodbye for a long time, sayonara, and konbanwa, good evening. Right, that brings us to the end of the first lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. If you struggled with the test, you can go back through and listen again and again and again and again and again. It's going to be here forever. You can listen as many times as you like. So in this week's homework, which you can download from the link in the description below, you can practice writing some hiragana. So here we have hiragana. So we're going to go over konnichiwa. So how to write that, and then here you'll write it down. And there's also the words underneath which you can practice. But like I said, if I was you, I would go through the video to get the pronunciations right. Soon will be lesson 2, which will be building our first sentences. So that's all in the works at the moment. That's got to be recorded and will soon be up on YouTube too. The music used in the beginning of the video was a piece of music called Japan by Yakov Golman. I hope I pronounced that right. I don't know if that's pronounced right, but the link to that piece of music will be in the description below. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please come back soon for more Motto Genki Japanese study with me, Robin Darby. And for now, I will say, Mata ne! See you later!